So what we have here is an opportunity for us to present to you work we do within the Research Evaluation and Faculty Development Office. The presentation is an overview of our work. It provides a look at the evolution of our work since 2013, but it also encompasses the work of faculty development programming, which is the longest standing continuous program at the College Fund since 2004. 2013 also marks the year that we received funding from the Lilly Endowment, which supported research capacity building, and was also the year that, if I remember correctly, the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs was created. So it's a good year to start our look back to inform you of the work that we do. But it's not just a look back. Of course, I mentioned it's an evolution of our work, but it's also what we do and why we do it and why we think it's important and how we've evolved in that space. Slide 2, please. So what you see here is our staff. We call ourselves nerds because we really are, and we really love to learn. And it's reflected in our approach to our work and our enthusiasm for our work. But what you also see here is the growth and the capacity of our organization, and I believe Cheryl's commitment to research evaluation and learning, organizational learning. I do want to give a little bit of credit, not a little bit, of a lot of credit to Cheryl for actually having the foresight when she came into the College Fund to think about the importance and the role of research and evaluation and data. When 2013 first started, I was hired as a research director, and it was the only one, and had to figure out, the grant first and foremost, but also the organizational needs and how we can adjust our approaches to help serve our students as well as the institutions that we serve. But what we have here then are all of our staff members. You see that each of these staff members are all, that we have included a few things here. I've included our disc profile, so you see the C and the D and the CD behind, in parentheses, behind names. As you might expect, we're heavily C oriented, but we do have a bit of diversity. We have 1D, 1S, and 3 who are a combination of. So those of you that pay attention to the disc profile could probably profile our department based on these characteristics. Our staff members bring a lot of expertise in different areas, including qualitative and quantitative research methods and analysis, survey design, an ability for descriptive analysis. We are cognizant and employ Indigenous research methods, community-based participatory research methods. We are obviously in the field of data. Our team does a lot of data validation, data analysis, data systems development, data integration, data linking. And of course, we have an ever-growing and evolving space with our faculty development. We just don't do fellowships anymore. We do a lot of work with faculty to support the work they do at TCUs. We also have 4 members who are tribal citizens. Myself, you see it there as well. Myself, we have Kayla, Crystal, and Taylor, who are all representing various tribes from different regions. Next slide, please.
That's a pretty cool thing, huh?
So what you have here is, I know there's a lot going on here. I'm not going to hit on every point here, but I mentioned already the evolution of our work, starting with faculty developments back in 2004 and taking a pivot with the creation of the ORSP and the receiving of funding from Lilly, which helped us focus internally on data. Data needs, data assessments, which really culminated with the development of our data stats document that we update annually. The first iteration came out in 2014, I believe. And then we've gradually pivoted to research. Once we established what our data was, what our data needs were, we also wanted to answer some questions. And during that time, we also were able to establish a relationship with the National Student Clearinghouse, which allowed us access to students' enrollment and graduation information. And so once we had this data, we began the process of saying, well, what can we do with this? What can we learn from this? And from that, we established some research. Myself and Matt Macamino, for those of you that have been around a while, did a TCU pathways analysis, for instance, and got a chapter published. And then from there, we started looking around more nationally and saw that HBCUs were conducting very innovative research around alumni, studies and outcomes, and wondered why the TCUs weren't involved in these kinds of studies. And so we did some outreach to Gallup as well as Strata Education Network, and established the research around what it's like, what are the outcomes like for TCU students, as well as provide us the opportunity to take at TCUs and looking at return on investments. And then we partnered with the Kresge Foundation to take a look at project success, internships, and emergency aid funding programs. I'm going to talk a little bit more about these as well, but the point here is the evolution from data to research, and then from research very organically into program evaluation and organizational learning. So that's what you see at the top with that progression. And we've kind of broke these years up into 4-year chunks, formative period for the first 4 years, a focus on learning and data systems, the next 4 years in growth and innovation, where we currently sit. Next slide, please. Preparing this presentation allowed our team to really think about our work, what we do, and what the value of our work is to the organization. And we were able to categorize these into 5 areas. The first area, of course, is research, and that we collaborate on and share research about Native students and TCUs and why, so that Native people and institutions are more visible in higher education. So it's not just about informing our own work and learning from that work internally, but also informing the field more generally. Those of you that do research or conducted literature reviews realize there's not a lot of research out there on American and Alaska Native post-secondary students as well as TCU. So part of our role is to fill the data gap and the research gap in those spaces. Secondly, with internal and external partners, we build TCU capacity so that TCUs thrive for 7 generations to come. Our work, invariably, we work with tribal college staff, faculty, and leadership. We provide a lot of support in the research and data capacity spaces, currently in the IR space, for instance, the institutional research, as well as in helping them think about things. And I'll give the example of the TCU Alumni Survey, where we worked with tribal colleges to establish a process for outreach to TCU, their own alumni, and to get that information for themselves so that they can use that information to market their programs, for instance, and to market the value of their education at their own institution. So there's a lot of capacity building with tribal colleges in the work that we do. And then third, together with staff, we explore and document the impacts and strengths of our work so that the College Fund can learn and adapt. Again, we are in the organizational learning space, a place we've ended up very organically. We've always been around learning. We've always understood the value of learning from data and research. And we just continue that work and really strengthen in those areas that we think are important for the organization. Fourth, we build information system and use data tools like data visualization so that the College Fund staff can collect, store, access, understand, and use data more effectively. You've seen, if you've been here over the last 3 years, the development of our new database, a collaborative project across our department, led by Tiffany and the SSS team. But it provides us an opportunity to think about our work more holistically, to centralize all of our data so that we can take that data and utilize it more efficiently and produce outcomes more efficiently. Anybody who's done research and data analysis with our Civicor data, for instance, understand there's a lot of data cleaning, a lot of work that goes on before you can actually get to the analysis. So we're hoping that our new database system will provide a more efficient process for all of that work. And finally, number 5, we support, empower, invest in the next generation of Native researchers and evaluators. This has been done over the years since 2014 with the development of our TCU Summer Research Intern Program, culminating with the hire of Taylor, our first post-baccalaureate fellow. All of these areas, these 5 categories here are the framework for this presentation, and what you see highlighted, the staff highlighted in each of these areas at the end of the statements are the staff who are involved in these areas and staff who will comment on these areas as the presentation continues. Next slide. So I'm going to talk a bit about the research space. I know I've alluded to this already with the evolution of our work. But our research at the College Fund is meant to identify areas for investigation to inform and provide support for our work. Research projects are designed to assess strengths and needs and to tell the story of our scholars that we also support. The research is also focused on the post-secondary American Alaska student journey and experiences and stories of the tribal colleges we serve. We come from this from a strength-based perspective, giving authentic voices of our research collaborators and participants. Our approach is grounded in both quantitative and qualitative Western Indigenous and community-based participatory approaches. We also want to utilize research to create relationships with students, faculty, staff, and TCU leadership. I think we pay a huge, we pay to Indigenous data sovereignty, and TCU leaders are the first ones to tell us and to make sure that we are not harming their institutions and that our research is actually doing a lot more good than harm. And so I've had numbers of conversations with TCU leadership over the years with these research projects, and they want to ensure that we're doing our best to support their work as TCU leaders. Next slide, please. So what you see here is just another visualization of the work around research. This encompasses the number of projects that we've done over the years. It talks about the funders who've supported the work. Again, it also is a good indicator of the evolution of our thinking about research and where our research focus lies. Again, at the very beginning, it was very internal, and then it branched out. And it was based on our own needs and a desire to answer various kinds of questions, but it was also based on funder needs as well. I'm not going to go through each of these different areas. I've already kind of alluded to these, but I want to jump to the next slide just to talk a little bit more deeply about the collaborations that have happened because of the research and the work that we do. What you see here is just a sample of the funders as well as the institutions who've been involved in these various research studies. I wanted to highlight the TCU Alumni Survey, the TCURA, a research project we did, a project success that you see in the blue down there, the TCU Combined Inquiry Study, which included both American and Alaska Native College Affordability Study, and then a TCU Combined Inquiry Study, which looked at TCU student success, TCU sustainability, and TCU program development and review practices at 5 tribal colleges. And then on top, you see the Hope Center collaborating with us to survey 7 TCUs, students at 7 TCUs to take a look at food and housing and security. So you kind of get a taste of the amount of involvement from various organizations and funders in order for our research projects to be successful. We obviously need TCUs to be involved in our study, and we obviously hope that TCUs understand the value of research, which they do, in data, and we hope that they utilize these findings that come from these studies to help their own work. Next slide, please. Just some high-level findings that have advanced the field and advanced the work that we do at the College Fund. The TCU Alumni Survey took a look at the outcomes of students who attended TCUs and also the outcomes of students that we supported internally. Sometimes we forget that we have data on College Fund scholars who graduated. They were involved in the study as well, and we can provide you access to that information on the J Drive. But we've taken some of these data points, for instance, two that are shown here. TCU alumni are nearly 2 times more likely than their peers nationally to be thriving in all 5 elements of well-being. These well-being indices were developed by the Gallup organization, and the outcomes of this study really blew me out of the water because I took a look at that. Who could have predicted that TCU alumni would be destroying all graduates from across the country, American Alaska Native graduates, HBCU graduates, as well as all other graduates at all institutions. TCU graduates are doing better than all these other graduates in these well-being indices. So that was a great props to TCUs and the work that they're doing. What it also highlighted was 74% of TCU alumni give back to the communities through jobs in areas related to American Indian communities or tribal lands. We might know that, have already known that internally as an organization, and TCUs probably already knew that. But what this does is it tells the world that our TCU graduates give back to their communities, and really that's the reason why they go to school to further their education, so that they can give back to their communities. The Real College Survey provided some, I think, some good data in regards to the tenuous situations of our college students at TCUs around housing and food and security. And you see a few stats here. 69% of respondents were housing insecure in the previous year that the study was conducted. 62% of respondents were food insecure in the prior 30 days, and 30% of respondents were homeless in the previous year. This was a lot higher than any other group of students surveyed through the HOPES, the Real College Survey. But what it also had in the study was how TCUs support students in reaction to various student situations, the development of very specific support mechanisms, emergency aid funding, for instance, internships, the use of credit cards for gas, for instance, the development of mental health programming. So the survey did not only highlight the tenuous situation of students in these areas, but also how TCUs support students to help them overcome some of these challenges. And the last study I wanted to talk about was the American Alaska Native College Affordability Study, which really allowed us to take a look at how our students think about paying for college, the types of challenges they encounter as students due to lack of funding, the types of funding they receive, and then the types of support they provide not only to their own immediate family, but also to extended family. A lot of our students support not just their own children and spouses, but aunts and uncles and grandparents. They also don't stop working. 40% of our former participants work more than 20 hours a week. So the scholarship funding is great, federal funding is great, but there's also a need for more funding, given the fact that they have all these responsibilities. So these are some of the highlights that I wanted to provide from some of the research that we've done over the last few years. Next slide, please. So what you have here then are the links to the resources that we've developed from these studies for you to use. I know not everybody has been here for 10 years like myself. There's probably a handful of us still here from 2014, and you are aware of these. But for those of you that are new, I wanted to let you know that these are where these resources reside for you, for the work that you do. They're there to benefit the conversations you might have with funders, for instance, or to benefit your own knowledge about TCUs and the students that we support.